Some things are good, some things are still, we've got a long way to go. Fact is, in South Cambridgeshire today, compared to the general election, there are fewer people unemployed than there were at the last election. In 2011, there were more new businesses set up in this country than at any time since records began. So there are good things happening, but it's awfully tough. And for those businesses that have started up in the last couple of years, you know what it's like. It's the first 3 years that are toughest. To grow, to prosper, is going to need, at some point, it's going to need finance, and it's going to need government getting out of the way, and it's going to need more skills if you need to employ somebody. So the things I'm describing, we need to make sure they're there, and they're there to help you when you grow. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrew. That was really good. Now, he's sitting there. This is your opportunity. Question him. Tina.
I have problems with the Foxton crossing. I'm sure a lot of other people do. Any idea what's going to happen there?
Yeah. There is a long history. About 12 or 13 years ago, we began a programme of trying to get a deal done between ourselves, the county council, the local authorities, and Network Rail to put a bridge over the Foxton crossing. Fact of the matter is, we didn't get there. The money wasn't there. It kind of dropped out in about, I think that plan disappeared about 2006 or 2007. So at the moment there is no plan. But someday we're going to have to do that thing. It's quite an expensive project, unfortunately, because you can imagine the land is there. You could do the land on the hang on, east-west, get my east-west right. Well, on the opposite, on the Barrington side of the land is there. You could do it, but it's quite a big financial project for Network Rail to do. But we'll tackle those things one by one. We're going to get the Ely Southern Bypass done, which will hopefully get the railway and the road separated south of Ely, which is like this. But that was getting to the point where it's almost going to be something like 48 or 50 minutes in the hour that the traffic wasn't going through it. At Foxton, it's bad. What are we, 22 minutes in the hour or something like that?
28.
Yeah, so it keeps going up. So we've got to do something about it, but we've got to get the money out of Network Rail, to be perfectly honest. But it would make a big difference. I mean, the finances for Network Rail, of course, it's a big upfront cost for them, but they would no longer have to have somebody in that signal box all the time at Foxton Crossing. So they would have a positive revenue flow from it. So we've not lost sight of it, but it's not, unfortunately, in the plan at the moment.
Hi, as we explained, we're still into month 2 of being at the Sheene Mill, and I would say that when we were looking at our projections before we came here, one of the biggest barriers to us wanting to do this and set up this business was business rates. They were astronomical, and has been more than that. Yeah, and it's one of the things that was pretty much the decision whether we do this or not. And we hope to turn this into a really successful, profitable business. But we know the first 3 years, as you said yourself, will be the most difficult times. What plans are there, or are there any plans for new businesses to encourage them to set up, whereby there could be a relaxed period on business rates, a holiday period or something, so that new businesses or new entrepreneurs like me and Serena actually can get into business easier and quicker?
Small business, in the, I was trying to find here, because I remember George in the autumn statement extended small business rate relief to 2014. So if you qualify for small business rate relief, there is further opportunity there. We need locally with the district council really, and the county council to have a conversation about how this is going to work, because for the future, the increase, the local authority is going to be able to hold on to a significant proportion, I think it's pretty much 50% of the increase in the business rate revenue is going to be held on to by the local authority. Now you might say, well hang on, I'll pay all to the local authority. But in the past, if there were more businesses paying more business rates in an area, the area didn't benefit from that. It all went off into the central pool and then got redistributed out. And that's going to change. And 50% of the business rates are going to stay. The local authorities have been given responsibility for some budgets themselves, but they've also been given the 50% of the business rates. So they can see, if they can grow the business rate, they can decide what to do with it. And part of that needs to be reinvesting back into promoting new business for the future, because we can see that benefit coming through. So we need to have a local scheme for promoting that kind of improvement in business. But it's always worth, I mean, South Cambs, to be fair to them, they've got a good business support operation going. You know, they're always willing to talk to businesses about what their needs might be. And they've got, as you can see, increasing flexibility in the future themselves to make decisions about what circumstances they apply business rates and they don't. The only thing they don't really effectively have a discretion in is the business rate valuation itself. HMRC and the valuation people do that directly so as to make it comparable, uniform, effectively meant to be a uniform system of independent system of valuation across the country. So it's well worth talking to South Cambs direct about that.
I'd like to bring the focus back for a few minutes, back to Melbourne. I don't know about the rest of you, but I personally think that the Melbourne Business Association is absolutely fantastic for us. But I think if it can put more effort into it in certain areas, it will help the village, both at family level, business level, any level you can see how to talk at. I also happen to know the three people to your left run this on a shoestring. So using your powers or whatever, is there any way you can help them, please? Don't answer that question.
My piggy bank's empty now.
Well, to coin a phrase, join the Melbourne Business Association.
I am already.
I'm coining your phrase. No, it's a very good thing to support, and I must say, I know from the over the years, both inside the constituency and from working with the Chambers of Commerce, that, which of course now incorporated the Chambers of Trade, more or less just after I was with them, we did that deal. So I think Royston came in to the Chamber of Commerce movement when the Chamber of Trade came in at that time. So, and businesses getting together is good for businesses because it's about networking, but it's also very good from the point of view of councillors and local authorities and members of parliament, because it enables these voices to be put together for there to be somebody you can go and talk to, somebody you can come to, and have an opportunity to, I mean, how would I do know some of you, but how would I have this opportunity to kind of hear from all of you collectively if it wasn't an association making that happen? And it's true in all walks of life. People who organise things are the minority, and they put their time in, whether it's parish councils or church organisation. We all live in a party associations. We all live in a minority where you might have 1,000 members, but you have about 50 people who do the work. So, but being the members is important. Coming to things is important. Being willing to spread the load a bit is important, because like in all these things, actually, once you have a few more people who join in, actually the load to any individual then really isn't too bad at all. So I entirely endorse what you say. So,
one of the government's flagship policies is to try and build our way out of recession in this country. And I keep hearing how planning restrictions have been relaxed. Sally and I have been trying to build a house opposite here for around about 2.5 years now. And my experience of applications to South Cambs Council, I mean, recently an application went in and it took a little bit longer than it should have done from the point of admin. But they have a policy of trying to turn around applications in 8 weeks. But because it got to the end of that 8-week period, and because of government guidelines that things have to be processed in 8 weeks, they automatically rejected it and said, you've got to reapply, which obviously cost me money in terms of architects' fees and what have you. But what exactly are these planning restrictions, or what's been eased to try and help people build their way out of recession? I mean, obviously, if you want to put a conservatory on or a porch or something, I understand what restrictions have been lifted. But what sort of major policies have been, or red tape has been removed to actually help developments?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that South Cambs did that, because you're right, there are some government directed targets about processing applications within a period of time and not letting it take too long. And you shouldn't seek to get round that by rejecting applications and not dealing with them properly in the time that's available. Although I must say, if they rejected you under those circumstances and you went to the inspectorate, the inspectorate would take a very dim view of the grounds.
We would advise to withdraw it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's tough, this stuff, because we talk about localism and we kind of give, and that's a practical thing. And I think one or two folks here have been involved in the parish plan. And of course, taking the parish plan and now turning it into the, under the new legislation, turning it into the neighbourhood plan, actually will mean that it's not just something that the parish kind of has worked together to give an expression of view about. It's something that will have statutory backing. It will be a plan-led system, so the parish can directly take a view, and that view will form part of the planning system for the future. But generally, at the same time as we're trying to give more power to the local authorities and the parishes that you vote for, the government is, you're right, very keen to get more housing built. We know we've got 1.8 million people who are on the waiting list for social housing. I know locally I've got 3 times more people who are contacting me about trying to get into social housing locally than I did 10 years ago. So we've got to build these houses. South Cambridgeshire is that sort of place. We know we've got people coming in who want jobs. We've got jobs and homes required. We're going to have to build probably between 1,000 and 1,200 homes, new homes a year in South Cambridgeshire to keep pace with those requirements. So working out now where those should be, but 100 and something, 200 of them a year are going to be opportunistic. They're going to be people who've just got a plot and just want to kind of build something, and we've got to enable that to happen. Which is why the legislation, the Growth and Infrastructure Bill going through Parliament in the Lords at the moment, is about freeing up these things. It's about permitted development rights being extended. It's about a stronger presumption in favour of development coming through in the planning system. So, it should genuinely be true that unless there is some good planning reason for you not to build a home, you should be free to do it. So that's the way the assumption should work. So, but all of these things, you have to kind of look at the merits of any individual case, and you have to kind of work it through. I just say, from my point of view, I'm always available to help because I'm not part of the planning system. I don't take planning decisions and so on, but I do, so therefore I'm free in that sense to kind of get, alongside constituents and try to make sure that in this respect or any other, the bureaucracy doesn't get in the way when it shouldn't.
Going off on that point,
Yeah.
That's just a single dwelling. There's a big thing in the village at the moment when you're driving around and seeing all these signs. They're talking about building 300 plus houses on the road out to the 505.
Road, yeah.
Rumour has it that that's just the start and the thin end of it, that there may be as many as 1,400 dwellings being built. And the question then is, about when you talk about infrastructure, how is that going to be supported? That road will become very busy. It's already a dangerous road, especially with the primary school. Have we really got any say in actually having that stopped or reduced or having any
now
influence
is the
on
moment, because where we are at the moment, South Cambridgeshire has to produce what's called a local development framework. And in a plan-led system, the things that should decide what the shape of planning in any village will be in the future should be, firstly, what is in the local development framework and what is in the neighbourhood plan. And these two things should directly correspond. Now, where we are, South Cambridgeshire effectively said, how many in their consultation last year, how many new homes do we need to build and where do we think they ought to be? And they've just published, yes they have, they've just published the next stage, which is, okay, we've been through all the possibilities and we're now winnowing right down, and these are the proposals on which we're consulting. So now is the time to, because if you get the plan wrong, if it says yes, there should be enormous development in, I mean, from my point of view across the constituency, there's, Comberton don't think they can cope with it at all. Swavesey think they can cope with it and they want some more. Salisbury has always been difficult because actually it's quite distant from the centre of the village, but actually Salisbury has got a local centre for shopping, so it is actually able to cope with some additional housing. How many of these should go into wholly new settlements? So we have North Stowe, Northwest Cambridge and probably Waterbeach following on after it, and the question will soon arise of, well, after Northstowe and Waterbeach, what then?